Okay, so this is a very aggressive Harbin Vanguard Aviator deck. Um, and what is great about this card is that its passive ability that triggers whenever five or more soldiers attack it. Harbin does not need to attack in, which means he can be removed. You can play him again for 4 or for 6 mana. And if you have 5 soldiers out, he acts as an anthem and gives your team flying. Now, this catches a lot of people off guard on the public queue, at least because you can swing in sometime between turns 3 and 6 for about 15 to 18 damage per turn if you have 5 or more soldiers who are attacking. And it comes out of the blue. A lot of people expect to be able to block. It's also a tricky deck because it has a very low curve, the way I've built it, and people can be a little confused if they don't have a Wrath as to what they should prioritize the removal on. If they remove your dorks or your small creatures, Harbin can swing in, getting enough damage usually that when you can refill your board, you can swing for lethal, or you can just outright kill them as long as you get a few other attacks in with other creatures. Being able to play blue means you get to play what I'm going to call protection spells. You get to play all of the 1 mana counter spells. And really all we're interested in countering is Wraths. We might counter direct removal, but we want to protect the board. As far as what creatures we play, almost all of the 1 mana soldiers are in here. A lot of them, like Boros Elite or Yoshin Frontliner, have advantages where they buff themselves or your members of your team. Others, like Doom Traveler, are really just here to fill a slot, and if we had a better 1-drop soldier, we would put it in. Esper Sentinel, which is a staple in these sort of decks. Law Rune Enforcer's tap ability sometimes comes in very handy. I'm just going over, you can peek at these on your own time, but almost all of the 1-drop soldiers, because getting to 5 creatures is so important. At the 2-drop slot, we have Vanguard, which great resiliency and a big threat, so getting down an early Vanguard and getting in 1 or 2 attacks in addition to 1 or 2 attacks with Harbin means that the opponent's life will be low enough that 1 swing in with your group of 5 soldiers will probably kill them. Ancestral Braid, though not a soldier, produces 1, so I've put it here with the 2-drop soldiers. And then just a variety of soldiers. Flaming Fist Duskguard is great with the Perpetual Boon, being able to cast Harbin next turn and keeping him as a 4-2. Otherwise, just the good 2-drop shoulders. Cards like Resolute Reinforcements really offer us a lot because anything that puts more creatures on the ground lets us get closer to activating Harbin's passive or meeting the requirements for Harbin's passive and getting that huge buff. The Sunhome Stalwart is a surprisingly good card, being able to buff your team. And this is an aggro deck, so if you go 1-drop like Boros Elite into Sunhome Stalwart, you're going to be buffing your Boros Elite, and then if you drop 2 1-drops next turn and then play out Harbin, you're going to have swung in for a lot of damage. The first strike also making it great against other aggro decks or death touch creatures in low curve black decks. Thalia is a great disruptive creature. It plays into our plan of really just wanting to protect the board. Again, First Strike being great. Tithe Taker likewise plays into our wanting to protect the board and has some resilience built in against Wraths, although the 1/1 Spirit token doesn't contribute to our game plan. Honor Guard, not the best attacker, but blanking the ETBs is really valuable. Denick being able to come back as a flyer is great, and Lavinia has a side effect, an unintended consequence of dealing with decks that copy spells, as long as they cast copies, and decks like Golos that want to play out lands from an activated ability, play out spells from an activated ability without paying their costs. Also deals with Emergent Ultimatum. So those, as you can see here, we have quite a lot of 1 and 2 drops because we really want to fill the board as quickly as possible. We are not so concerned with removing the enemy's creatures because we're just going to attack in the air over them, and usually before they can kill us. We do go up to 3-drop though, and we have quite a few 3-drops as there are some valuable ones. Fairground Warden, exiling a creature. Lava Brick Wrencher can often attack in if we wind up with a board state versus a deck that has enough removal. A card like this can often make the difference of being able to attack in for the last few bits of damage. Some filler cards, just to make sure that we get enough soldiers. Mentor of the Meek is in here to provide card advantage in theory, although in practice we are often killing them before this card advantage matters. Set of other cards. Siege Veteran is one of the key cards in this deck, buffing other creatures and also giving us great resilience against wraths if this and 3 other soldiers die. That gives us 3 soldiers tokens on board, and if one of those soldiers, let's say, was Yoshin Frontliner, we can play out Harbin and then the turn after Yoshin Frontliner and still attack in past the Wrath. Ranger Captain of Eos can protect us from a Wrath, and if we have lethal the turn after, we can swing in and take care of business. Taranika, just another creature that gives a buff to one of ours. Meryl is actually great in this deck because she can fill up the board very quickly. Great against individual removal if she gets to swing in, because she will give us such a wide board that we will be able to activate Harbin. Yoshin Tactician is acting just as a banner for the team, buffing the team. So those are our creatures. Quite a few. We really want to hit those 5 creatures so we can swing in, those 5 soldiers, so we can swing in and get the buff from Harbin. Now we have our removal. We don't really care so much about removing an opponent's creatures because, again, we're attacking in the air. But just in case we do, we have Exile and Exile aligned cards that let us remove anything that's really preventing our strategy from working or just too much of a threat to ignore. Then here we have our protection package, a few single target protections. We're more interested in being able to block the opponent's wraths. Wash Away is just great value if we can run it. Protect the Negotiators is a card that deserves a special mention in this deck because we're aiming to fill the board. The Kicker also gives us a creature, and the amount of mana the opponent will have to pay will usually be 4 or more, which for 3 mana is really... It fits our game plan, and it gives us the counterspell protection we need. Dovin's Veto, of course, and then we have 2 team indestructible spells that also buff the team. So that's our protection package. And then we have another set of utility that helps us produce creatures. Horn of Valhalla, Raise the Alarm, Basri. Obviously great with this deck. A great 3-drop in any white aggro deck, but really synergizes here. The -2 giving us a lot of value, in particular as we can play 1-drop, 2-drop, or 2 1-drops, and then we can play, so we could do 1-drop, 2-drop Basri, or 2 2-drops Basri, and get enough soldier tokens to activate Harbin the next turn on turn 4. Gideon, being a soldier, a Wrath Resilient threat and also threatening exile. And Finale of Glory, great to draw later in the game, can give us 5 soldiers on the spot. There are a few cards I don't have crafted that would definitely be great includes. Captain Eberhart, Sun Gold Sentinel is great stats for its price. Thalia's Lieutenant probably would be the first craft because we have tons of humans in the deck, 35, so it would definitely benefit our deck. Valiant Venture, likewise, is an anthem for 2, that's also a creature. Sky Strike Officer gives us another flyer that can create tokens, so these 3 here are probably the first crafts, but all of these cards really, if I had them, I would find a spot for them in the deck. Ranger of Eos at 4 does fill our hand, gives us more threats, but our 4 mana creatures either buff the whole team, so the Ocean Tactician we're playing probably 4 lethal the turn we play it, or Myril, who's just going to generate so much value and fill our board. So questionable. Platoon Dispenser for 5 gives us a little bit of card advantage, but probably not worth it in this deck. It doesn't fit with the aggro theme. It would be more in a mid-range, more at home in a mid-range deck. 2 lands that I don't have crafted that I would definitely play. Fortified Beachhead is a free dual color land for us because we are always going to have a soldier in our hand. And Forsaken Crossroad just can help with fixing earlier on. So that's the deck. The idea is to play fast, to play to the board, and to protect it. And hopefully we can get some interesting games in.